In the previous episodes, we talked about ethical breeders, people who plan years ahead, health test, prove their dogs and breed with one goal in mind: breed preservation and improvement. Then we talked about backyard breeders, people who skip the hard parts, especially the most important one: accountability. Don't health test and breed because it's easy, convenient or profitable. Now it's time to talk about puppy mills, but before we do, allow me to make something very clear. Puppy mills are not a separate category of breeding. They're basically large-scale backyard breeders. Same mindset, lack of knowledge, and disregard for long-term consequences. If backyard breeding is irresponsible breeding disguised as a hobby or love, then puppy mills are the same irresponsibility disguised as a business. Instead of 1 or 2 litters a year, it's dozens. Instead of one backyard or home, it's entire facilities. Instead of a few neglected dogs, it's hundreds. Once you understand this connection, puppy mills stop feeling like an isolated problem and start making sense as a part of a much larger system. So what exactly is a puppy mill? A puppy mill is a large-scale commercial breeding operation where dogs are bred for profit, not for health, temperament or welfare, or the preservation or improvement of a breed. The only thing being improved here is the balance of someone's bank account. Dogs in puppy mills are kept as production units. Females are bred repeatedly with minimal recovery time. Males are solely kept for breeding. Puppies are a product to be sold, not lives to be shaped. The breeding dogs live their lives producing litter after litter, often with minimal veterinary care, little to no socialization, and no regard for their physical, mental well-being or their future. To be fair, puppy mills are not the biggest threats to whippets specifically. That doesn't mean they aren't harmful, they absolutely are. But whippets, at least for now, are not produced in the massive numbers that drive most large-scale commercial operations. This doesn't mean it hasn't happened or that it will never happen. Puppy mills focus on breeds that are easy to market, quick to sell, and consistently profitable. Think of dogs that are trendy, instantly recognizable, and in constant demand. Whippets usually don't fit that model, yet. Thank God. But that doesn't mean they're safe. Where puppy mills dominate through sheer volume, whippets are far more vulnerable to something else. Small, unregulated breeding carried out by individuals who believe they're doing the right thing. Backyard breeders don't need massive facilities or dozens of breeding dogs to cause serious damage. In a small population, even a few poorly planned litters can alter the breed dramatically in a short period of time, as I showed you in the last video. And unlike puppy mills, backyard breeders usually operate under the illusion of care and responsibility. They claim to love their dogs. They don't see themselves as a part of the problem. And because of that, they're harder to recognize and harder to stop. While puppy mills represent the most extreme end of profit-driven breeding, backyard breeding is often the bigger threat to rare or less popular breeds such as the whippet, because it spreads quietly, locally, and unchecked. In a puppy mill, health and genetics are rarely a priority. Unlike ethical breeders who carefully select mates based on proven lineage, health testing, temperament, and contribution to the breed, puppy mills breed dogs for volume and profit, not for quality. Some mills will wave and bark in your face or other DNA test kits as proof of health testing or genetic responsibility. Let's be clear, these tests are not a substitute for comprehensive health evaluation, breed-specific screening, or proper pedigree analysis. DNA health panels can be a wonderful tool in combination with proper health testing, but on their own they're insufficient because they do not replace heart exams, eye checks, hip evaluations, and other essential breed-specific tests. They do not measure temperament, conformation, or long-term hereditary risk. Profit-first breeding and superficial testing is not ethical breeding. No piece of paper, DNA test, or certified pedigree from a mill can replace decades of responsible, careful breeding practices. One of the most misleading phrases in dog breeding is licensed and inspected. Puppy mills love to use it, buyers love to believe it, and the reality is far less comforting. A license does not mean ethical breeding. or that the dogs are bred responsibly, selectively, or with their welfare as a priority. It simply means that the operation meets the absolute legal minimum required to keep on producing puppies. Inspections, when they happen, are not about breed preservation, temperament, or genetic responsibility. They check for basics. Is there food? Is there water? Are the dogs technically alive? And that's about it. There are no inspections for mental stimulation, socialization, ethical mate selection, breed standard adherence, long-term health outcomes, responsible puppy placement. A licensed male can legally keep dogs in kennels for their entire breeding lives, repeatedly breed females until they are no longer profitable, and dispose of them afterwards, without breaking the law. Some males even pass inspections while dogs live in stacked wire cages, receive minimal human interaction, and exist solely as reproductive machines. Legal does not mean ethical, and it certainly does not mean responsible. This is why you will often see puppy mills proudly state USDA licensed or EU registered, because they know buyers assume it equals safety. It doesn't. When I hear licensed, to me that means, well, we breed dozens of litters every year, but hey, rest assured, we're licensed. A license is paperwork. Ethics are action. Puppy mills don't breed for proper development, confidence, or long-term well-being, but for output. Puppies are treated as inventory, not as individuals. The first critical weeks of a puppy's life are when the nervous system develops, stress resilience is formed, and social behavior begins to take shape. In males, those weeks are typically spent in enclosures, constant noise, limited human contact, and overcrowded conditions. Puppies are handled only as much as necessary. There is no intentional early neurological stimulation, structured exposure to household sounds, thoughtful introduction to novelty, surfaces, or human interaction. This matters because fear, reactivity, anxiety, and poor stress tolerance don't come out of nowhere. They're often rooted in early deprivation. Males also prioritize early sale. Puppies are removed from their mothers as soon as legally allowed, sometimes sooner because every extra day costs money. By the time these puppies reach their buyers, many already carry invisible damage, such as poor coping skills, fear responses, weak immune system, and lifelong behavioral challenges. Just as critically, there is no evaluation of structure or movement. Puppy mills completely disregard conformation and soundness. No one is watching or even cares how puppies stand, move, or carry themselves. No one is assessing joint alignment, balance, proportion, or how a body will hold up over time. These breeders are not thinking about how structure affects longevity, comfort, or quality of life. Dogs are bred because they're fertile and available, not because they're physically correct. Not to mention all the fancy designer mutts produced in puppy mills. There is no breed standard for mixed breeds, therefore no guidelines. As a result, many puppy mill dogs are structurally unsound. They may look fine as puppies and cute enough to sell, but poor fronts, weak top lines, incorrect angulation, and unstable movement reveal themselves as the dog matures. And unsound structure is not cosmetic. It leads to early joint wear, chronic pain, reduced mobility, and increased risk of injury. And because puppy mills breed generation after generation without evaluation or correction, these faults compound. Once the puppy is sold, responsibility ends. The dog becomes someone else's problem the moment the transaction is completed. Lifetime contracts, guarantees beyond the bare minimum required by law, and interest in the long-term outcome of the dogs they produce are non-existent. The lack of accountability is not an accident. It's built into the business model. Puppy mills operate on volume. Responsibility costs time, money, and effort. And those are things large-scale commercial breeding cannot afford if profit is the goal. When dogs are viewed as inventory and not individuals, accountability becomes an inconvenience. This is why puppy mills contribute so heavily to shelter populations. Dogs with medical issues, behavioral challenges, or structural problems that were never addressed at the source often end up abandoned, rehomed, or surrendered when families realize they're overwhelmed. The support never existed and the cycle continues. Puppy mills don't exist because people love dogs. They exist because people buy dogs without asking hard questions. Which brings us to buyer responsibility and owner selection. This is the part that honestly blows my mind. People will scroll past an ad showing puppies listed like products with prices, availability, and shipping options coming from a single facility that breeds dozens of breeds at the same time. And instead of seeing a red flag, they see convenience. Golden retrievers, French bulldogs, doodles of every imaginable combination. Dogs that resemble breeds at best and mutts at absolutely insane prices. This is mass production and yet people rush to buy. How come no one who buys puppies from these places ever asks how it's possible for a single place to ethically breed so many litters a year and so many breeds at once? They don't ask who evaluates these dogs, who health tests them properly, who understands each breed's structure, temperament, and purpose. They don't ask how puppies are raised, socialized, or prepared for life outside a kennel. Because the puppy is cute, it's available now, it can be shipped, and the website looks professional. And this is how puppy mills survive. This brings us to owner selection or the complete lack of it. Puppy mills don't select owners. If you have money, you qualify. And once again, this is not a mistake but a business model. Owner selection slows sales, careful placement limits volume, and accountability interferes with profit, so it's removed entirely. Puppy mills are directly connected to shelter populations, not in theory but in practice. When dogs are bred in volume without proper health testing, thoughtful placement, and lifetime responsibility, many of them fail in the real world. Some develop severe health issues. Others have behavioral struggles due to poor genetics and early deprivation. Some don't fit the lifestyle they were sold into, or were sold to people who simply view dogs as disposable items. And when these dogs become too much, they don't go back to the breeder. They end up resold, rehomed, abandoned, or surrendered to shelters and rescues. This is why shelters are full of young, purebred, and trendy designer dogs. This is why rescues are overwhelmed and so many dogs need saving in the first place. Puppy mills and backyard breeders produce dogs and shelters manage the consequences. Every dog bred without a safety net increases the burden on rescues, shelters, and volunteers. And anyone who purchases from these places contributes to the cycle. Puppy mills exist because people keep buying from them, not because people are evil, but because they're uninformed, impatient, or misled by marketing. And sometimes because they're straight up irresponsible and impulse buy a living being they never deserved on the first place. Every purchase from a puppy mill tells the operation, "Great job, this works. Keep going." As long as there is a demand for puppies born in mills, their production will never end. The same applies to backyard breeders. If you're buying a puppy from a puppy mill, the predictability you think you're getting is an illusion. Yep, that's right, the world of make-believe. You don't have a single clue how the puppy was raised, what genetic issues may surface later, how stable their temperament will be, or whether the dog will cope well with family life. The level of uncertainty is very similar to adopting a dog from a shelter. The difference? One choice saves a life. The other funds the production of more dogs. Shelter dogs often resemble certain breeds without guaranteed affiliation, exactly like unethically bred puppies. Health outcomes are uncertain, again, exactly like mill puppies. But shelters exist to help dogs who are already here and already need our help. Wait, what? You want a designer dog? Oh, shut the f***. How about you visit a shelter? You will find hundreds of dogs that look like no other in need of a home. So if you aren't willing to wait for an ethical breeder, adoption is the far more honest and ethical option. Because at least adoption doesn't create more suffering to solve. Adopt or shop responsibly. Puppy mills thrive because people prioritize speed, convenience, and aesthetics over ethics. Every buyer has a choice. To wait or to rush, to research or to assume, to support accountability or fund exploitation. And every choice shapes the future of dogs, Not just whippets, not just one breed, but all of them. You don't protect dogs by buying blindly. You protect them by refusing to participate in systems that harm them. And that choice, inconvenient as it may be, is where real responsibility begins. Most people don't set out to support puppy mills or backyard breeders. They simply don't know what to look for or what to run from. In the next episode, we're going to change that. We will break down red and green flags when looking for a whippet breeder, the things ethical breeders consistently do, and the warning signs that should make you walk away immediately. Because once you know what ethical breeding actually looks like, and once you understand how bad breeding operates, spotting the difference becomes much easier. So, have a lovely weekend and a fantastic week afterwards, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye bye!